Someone call 911 now! He's not breathing! The voice echoed through the Hale Warner Holdings conference room on the 42nd floor, shattering corporate formality like unexpected thunder. The CEO, Andrew Hale, was already on the floor. The thud of his body hitting the ground still echoed in the minds of the 8 board members who watched everything in shock. Emily Walker, kneeling near the cleaning cart, dropped the trash bag the instant she heard the scream. 5 seconds earlier, she'd simply been collecting cups and crumpled papers, doing another day of quiet work. But now, the entire room was transforming before her eyes. Andrew had just presented a chart on the monitor when his voice faltered. He grabbed his chest, inhaled sharply, and collapsed as if someone had flipped a switch. "God, he's turning pale," one of the executives murmured, taking 2 steps back. "Is this really happening?" another whispered, frozen. Emily didn't have time to think. She shoved the cart aside, sliding across the polished floor toward the CEO's motionless body and dropping to her knees beside him. Her hands trembled, but the memory of the basic first aid course she'd taken years earlier, back when she'd worked as a babysitter, flashed back at full force. "Move!" she ordered, her voice firm despite her shaking hands. "Move now!" The board members scrambled away, stunned to be commanded by the woman who, minutes earlier, had been collecting their trash. Emily tilted Andrew's head back and checked for breathing. Nothing. A bluish tint was already forming on his lips. "He has no pulse," she said, her throat tightening. The executives exchanged desperate glances, like people who had never imagined witnessing such a thing. The scene was raw, frantic, exactly like those emotional stories no one ever wants to live in real life. Emily began chest compressions, pushing with force, rhythm, and precision. "What is she doing?" one director exclaimed. "She's touching him!" Another shot back, stunned. "That looks inappropriate. Emergency services are already on their way." Emily ignored every accusation, focused solely on the life slipping through her fingers. One director leaned toward another, whispering, "This is unbelievable. A janitor? Doing that?" She checked his breathing again, brought her face close to his, then delivered 2 short breaths via mouth to mouth. The air went in, but Andrew's body remained unresponsive. "You can't do that!" shouted Samantha Doyle, the COO. "Step away from him. You don't belong here." "He's dying!" Emily fired back, not losing focus. "Back off!" The tension in the room reached its limit. A perfect setup for a dramatic slow-burn romance someday, though no one could imagine that at the moment. Emily stayed firm. Compressions, checking, breaths, as if each second decided his fate. "Come on, Mr. Hale," she whispered, breathless. "You're too young. Don't give up now." The air felt heavy, and the group's silence made everything more agonizing. Her breathing became harder with every compression, but stopping wasn't an option. Then finally, from the hallway, salvation arrived. "EMS incoming. Make space." The door burst open as 2 paramedics entered with a stretcher and a defibrillator. "How long has he been out?" one asked. 4 minutes. No pulse. No breathing. CPR ongoing," Emily answered. Direct. Steady. A quick, surprised look crossed the paramedic's face at her precise information. "Good job. You probably kept him alive." Emily slowly backed away, sweating, sinking to the floor in exhaustion. Her heart pounded so loudly she could feel it in her ears. The paramedics took over compressions, prepped the defibrillator, and delivered the first shock. Andrew's body jerked. Second shock. Then the monitor beeped. One line, then another. A rhythm appeared. Weak breathing, life, faint, but present. "We've got a pulse. Let's move," the paramedic announced. The executives rushed toward the stretcher, instantly transforming from passive critics into anxious spectators. Emily, however, stayed to the side, catching her breath as the Billionaire CEO was carried away. Samantha Doyle approached her with an icy expression. "What you did was completely out of line," she said, each word a blow. "We'll report this to HR. There will be consequences for whatever that was." Emily's mouth fell open, but no words came out at first. I saved his life, she finally managed, low and disbelieving. That's your version, girl. The medical team arrived fast. You exaggerated and took advantage of the situation, Samantha replied, turning away. Human resources will decide. Emily remained there alone for a moment, feeling the weight of something far bigger than the cardiac arrest. It was the beginning of something unexpected, a dramatic storyline born from chaos, injustice, and adrenaline, and no one, not even her, was prepared. The sun hadn't even risen when Emily Walker awoke to the insistently beeping cheap alarm clock beside her bed. The previous day flashed through her mind in chaotic fragments. The compressions, the shouting, the defibrillator shock, the bluish color on Andrew Hale's lips, the most powerful man she had ever seen up close. And then, like slow poison, the cold voice of Samantha Doyle promising consequences. Emily took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She needed to prepare breakfast for her 5-year-old daughter, Lily, before taking her to school. As surreal as the incident had been, real life didn't pause for her to process anything. But the anxiety was a stone in her stomach. If Samantha actually reported her to HR, Emily had no defense. No one there saw her as a person. She was just the cleaning lady. After dropping Lily at school, Emily walked to the Hale Warner Holdings building. The glass towers reflected the gray Manhattan sky, and the morning flow of suit-clad executives only deepened the contrast between their world and hers. As soon as she entered through the staff entrance, her cleaning supervisor, Marianne Flynn, was already waiting. Her expression was tight, as if she had rehearsed what she was about to say 1,000 times. "Emily, we need to talk," Marianne said, leading her into a small room beside the supply closet. Emily already knew. "I did everything right yesterday, ma'am," she said before Marianne could begin. "If I hadn't acted, Mr. Hale would have died on that floor." Marianne sighed. "I know, and everyone who knows you is aware you took first aid training and were qualified. But HR received a formal complaint from the COO. She claimed you crossed professional boundaries during the incident." Emily felt her blood turn cold. "Crossed boundaries? I performed CPR, which includes mouth-to-mouth ventilation. Is that what she's talking about? I followed protocol. What else was I supposed to do? Let him die?" Marianne didn't respond immediately. She looked down at her clipboard, as though the paper might ease her discomfort. "The company has decided to investigate, and during that time you're suspended for 1 week without pay." The words hit Emily like a punch to the chest. Suspended, without pay, with rent overdue, with a small daughter, for saving the CEO's life. "This is unfair," Emily said, her voice trembling. "Completely unfair." "I know," Marianne answered, genuinely. "If I could do something, I would, but this came from the top." Emily left the building slowly, the injustice weighing on her like lead. The contrast between the heroism of the previous day and the punishment of that morning was so absurd, it felt like something out of an emotional survival story. The kind nobody believes is real. Meanwhile, just a few blocks away, in a private Manhattan hospital, Andrew Hale opened his eyes slowly. The white light of the room blinded him for a moment, but the pain in his chest was a clearer reminder that he was alive. Voices murmured around him. Family, doctors, nurses discussing cardiac enzymes, early intervention, and luck. But some words repeated like a refrain. CPR. Employee. She kept you alive. Andrew tried to sit up, but a nurse stopped him. "Mr. Hale, please. You just woke up. Stay still. Do you remember what happened?" Everything came back at once, the moment he collapsed, and he immediately asked, his voice still weak, "Who performed the CPR?" The nurse checked her tablet. "Emily Walker, from the cleaning staff." Her name echoed in his mind. "I want to see her," Andrew said, his voice gaining strength. "Now." The nurse smiled with professional gentleness. "Mr. Hale, she's not here, and according to the system, she was suspended this morning." His reaction was immediate. "Suspended?" Andrew repeated, incredulous. "For saving my life? It seems there were Different interpretations of what happened, sir. Everything will be clarified later. For now, please rest. Andrew closed his eyes, breathing deeply. A growing irritation pulsed under his skin, not just at the injustice, but at how coldly and incompetently his own company had acted. Andrew Hale had survived brutal mergers, market crashes, delicate international negotiations, and the scandal surrounding his divorce some time ago. But nothing irritated him more than injustice, especially when someone who saved him was punished. Doctors kept him under observation for 4 days, monitoring his heart 24/7. It was 4 days of recovery, analyses, medication adjustments, and strict recommendations for rest. But the moment he officially received discharge, still carrying traces of exhaustion, Andrew had one clear goal: fix what they'd done to Emily. The next morning, instead of going straight to the office, he told his driver, "Before the company, drive to this address," he ordered, reciting it while leaning back in the seat, still tired, thinking, "I'm going to find her myself." Emily walked home because she didn't have spare money for the subway that day. The cold wind struck her face, and the city seemed indifferent to her crisis. A week of suspension without pay meant an entire week with no income, bills piling up, possibly losing her apartment if rent wasn't paid. This was the kind of thing that only happened to people like her, invisible people. When she reached her modest building in Brooklyn, she paused in front of the worn door, inhaled deeply. She needed to stay composed for Lily. Her daughter could never see the world crushing her like this. But as she climbed the 3 flights of stairs and entered the building, she found something entirely out of place. A tall, imposing man in a dark suit standing in the hallway, talking to her neighbor. "You're looking for Emily?" Mrs. Turner, the elderly neighbor, asked. Before Emily could react, the man turned, and there he was. Andrew Hale, pale, thinner, but unmistakably alive, and staring at her with an intensity that made the ground feel unstable. "Emily Walker?" he asked, his voice rough but steady. "I need to talk to you." For a moment, Emily thought she was dreaming. The man she had saved, the man whose company had just suspended her, stood in her building's narrow hallway, looking at her as if she were the most important person in the world right now. Andrew stepped forward. "I'm alive because of you," he said, "and I found out what they did to you. That suspension ends today." Emily's heart raced. Shock, confusion, suspicion, and something deeper, subtle, unnamed. Her life had just turned upside down. And that unexpected appearance was only the beginning of something much larger. Perhaps the beginning of an unlikely alliance or a slow-burn romance filled with tension and fate that she couldn't yet imagine. Emily stood still for several seconds, trying to absorb the scene. She had imagined many possibilities for the day: paying late bills, finding a temporary job, maybe receiving a call from HR confirming her dismissal. But never had she imagined the billionaire CEO of the company where she mopped floors standing at her door. "Mr. Hale?" she said, still struggling to believe what she was seeing. Andrew took a step closer, resting a hand on the wall for balance. Recovery still made his body heavy, but his determination was unwavering. "I'm alive because of you," he repeated, locking eyes with her. "And I found out about the suspension. That should never have happened." Emily swallowed hard. Something in his tone, firm, authoritative, but not harsh, sent a twist through her stomach. It was a tone she never imagined directed at her, especially from Andrew Hale. Mrs. Turner watched from her door, clutching a grocery bag. "Dear, is everything all right?" the elder asked. "He doesn't look dangerous, but it's strange for a man like that to come here." Emily offered a quick, embarrassed smile. "It's okay, Mrs. Turner. Thank you." The neighbor closed her door slowly, still peeking through the crack. Andrew inhaled. "May I come in?" he asked. Emily hesitated. The living room was small, simple, with Lily's toys scattered on the floor. A tiny kitchen, a worn sofa, the opposite of his world. But refusing him would seem rude. and deep down, she wanted to understand what was happening. "Sure," she said. "Come in." Andrew stepped inside carefully, as if he didn't want to disturb anything. His eyes scanned the apartment, not with judgment, but with curiosity, as though he were discovering a place he'd never imagined visiting. Emily closed the door. "Lily's at school," she said automatically, feeling the need to explain the unusual silence. Andrew nodded. "I assumed you'd be working." The reminder of her suspension hit hard, and she exhaled slowly. "I would be," she said, "if they hadn't decided helping you was inappropriate." Andrew rested his hand on the sofa for balance. Though discharged, he still moved like someone carrying significant weight. "That won't stand," he said. "I want you back immediately. There will be a formal apology. From the whole company." Emily crossed her arms. "With all due respect, Mr. Hale, it's not that simple. I know how things work in there. People like me don't have a voice." Andrew met her eyes, and for a moment, the weight of that gaze made her look away. It was intense, direct. A mix of gratitude and something deeper neither dared to name. "You saved my life," he said slowly, "and that's not something I overlook. I won't allow my own company to mistreat someone like that." Emily studied him. It was hard to believe someone so powerful cared about someone like her. The board's behavior made it clear people like Emily were invisible, replaceable. But Andrew didn't seem to see her that way. "I only did what anyone would do," she said, though she knew well most people in that room hadn't done anything. Andrew let out a small, tired laugh. "No, Emily, no one in that room did what you did." She moved a bit closer, drawn by the sincerity in his voice. And then, something subtle happened. A silence settled, not empty, but charged. As if an unexpected energy had sparked between them, a connection neither was prepared to feel. Andrew looked away briefly, as if trying to organize too many thoughts at once. "I want to thank you properly," he said. "But I'm still recovering. I can't stay standing long. If you don't mind, can we sit?" Emily nodded and gestured toward the sofa. As he sat, he released a quiet sigh of exhaustion. She sat at the opposite end, keeping a respectful distance. "How long were you in the hospital?" she asked. 4 days, he answered, and every doctor repeated one thing: "You're alive because someone acted." And I knew that someone wasn't from the board. It was someone who didn't hesitate, someone doing the hardest, most invisible job in the building. Emily felt her face warm, not from embarrassment, but from something like recognition. As if, for the first time, someone truly saw what she did. "Well," she said, trying to ease the tension, "I guess I won't be working this week regardless. So, I don't know how you'll fix that." Andrew straightened up, discomfort clear but ignored. "I'll fix it, and if you're willing, I'd like you to come to the company with me. Today." Emily's eyes widened. "Today?" "Yes, now. If not for you, I might not be here. And because I want to make it clear you're not alone in this." Emily fell silent. She wanted to laugh, loudly, because it felt like a scene straight out of a romance movie featuring a powerful man. But her reality was far more complex. It was a dramatic storyline she was still struggling to understand. "And Lily?" she asked. "I have to pick her up at 3. I let the babysitter go until HR gives me an answer." "You'll be back before then," Andrew assured. Emily inhaled deeply. It was risky, unexpected, intense, but something inside her, maybe courage, maybe exhaustion from injustice, made her say, "All right, sir, I'll go." Andrew smiled for the first time, small, sincere, a smile that softened him and revealed a vulnerability no one in the boardroom would ever see. He stood slowly. Emily rushed to grab her bag. When they left the apartment side by side, the world felt slightly tilted. It was the beginning of something neither could control, an unlikely bond, a slow-burning romance taking its first breath. The morning was cold as Emily and Andrew left the Brooklyn building and walked to the car. The driver moved to open the rear door, but Andrew raised a hand, refusing. He opened the door for Emily himself, a simple gesture for him, a silent thunderbolt for her. She wasn't used to being treated with that kind of respect, much less by someone like Andrew Hale. The drive to Manhattan was quiet. Andrew stared out the window, and Emily observed him in fleeting glances. Despite the impeccable suit, something in him had changed, a new softness, a deep introspection. He wasn't the corporate titan commanding meetings. There was a slowness, almost a fatigue, that went beyond physical recovery. And though he hadn't admitted it yet, the heart attack had already begun rearranging his priorities. After the divorce from a young heiress from an old family who had always accused him of prioritizing work and never making time for her, Andrew had never stopped to reflect. Until now. Hale and Warner Holdings came into view. The revolving doors, the gleaming lobby, the constant flow of executives. Emily's chest tightened as she entered beside him. It felt like crossing a forbidden border. The looks she received ranged from confused to curious to openly judgmental. But Andrew walked beside her as if it were natural. As if this woman, the one who had cleaned the floors during his meetings, were his personal guest. When she realized they were heading toward the executive-only elevator, Emily spoke, trying to control her anxiety. "Mr. Hale," she began, "tell me where I should meet you. I can go back and come in through the staff entrance." "Emily," Andrew said, turning toward her, his light brown eyes steady. "Nothing involving you will be mishandled again while I'm still breathing." "I appreciate that, sir, truly. But are you sure it's a good idea? I just want my job back. I don't want to make things worse." He didn't respond. He simply kept walking toward the elevator. She followed him, and his words lingered between them. Even in silence, they were loaded with meaning. Meaning both could feel, meaning neither dared to admit. When they reached the executive floor, Samantha Doyle was there, as if she knew exactly what time he would arrive. Or maybe she had been waiting to intercept him. "Andrew," she said, smiling artificially. "Thank God you're back. We were worried." Her smile died the instant she saw Emily walking right behind him. "What is she doing here?" Samantha demanded, the mask falling. Andrew took a step forward. "Fixing a mistake. Her suspension ends now. I want a formal statement apologizing to her." Samantha's face went pale. "Andrew, that is not appropriate. She demonstrated misconduct." "Samantha," Andrew cut in, cold. "The one who almost died in that room was me, not you. The one who kept me alive until paramedics arrived was her. Your opinion about the incident is irrelevant." Samantha was left speechless. Andrew walked past her, guiding Emily into his office. He closed the door. Inside, the silence was both comforting and tense. Emily sat down slowly, trying to take everything in. "I don't know what to say, sir," she murmured. "You don't have to say anything," Andrew replied. "Just accept what's fair." Before he could continue, Emily's phone rang insistently. The number wasn't saved, but she recognized it instantly. She went pale. "Emily?" Andrew asked. She answered. A male voice came from the other end. "Hey, sweetheart." The voice carried sarcasm and a thinly veiled threat. Emily closed her eyes for a second. It was her ex. "What do you want, Mark?" she asked softly, trying to keep her voice steady. Andrew immediately sensed the tension. His posture shifted, alert, protective. "I need money," Mark said. "A lot of money. And now I know you're going to be able to help me. I've helped you before. I don't have any, you do. And now I want more. Real money," Mark growled. "I heard about your suspension. Bet that shook you up, huh? Tough luck. I'm not asking, Emily. I'm demanding." She swallowed hard. "Mark, I don't have it. And now is not a good time to talk," she repeated very softly. "You've got a daughter, don't you?" He cut in, his cruelty growing. The people I owe aren't the kind of people you want mad at you. I need to fix this. And if I tell the social worker you're a negligent mother, that you don't earn enough or that you're a bad example, even got suspended at work, well, she might believe me. Emily lost her breath. You wouldn't do that. Don't bet on it, he shot back. Meet me tonight, or I start telling people you're not fit to care for our daughter. I might not get custody, but you'll lose her too. The call ended. The room fell silent. Andrew watched her for a few seconds. Her breathing was quick and uneven. Her eyes were wet, but not shattered. She rarely broke, even when the world tried its best to crush her. Who was that? Andrew asked, his voice calm but tight. Emily opened her mouth, but no sound came. Andrew stepped a little closer, keeping a respectful distance, but making it clear he was there. Emily, talk to me. No one, sir. Just my ex, she said at last. And if I may ask, what did he say that made you go that pale? She drew in a breath, hesitated, then finally spoke. He got involved with dangerous people. He has serious debts. And now he's trying to blackmail me. He said he's going to try to take my daughter away, even if it means putting her in foster care if I don't give him money. Andrew felt something shift inside him, a protective instinct, firm and almost feral. He bent slightly, lowering himself to meet her eyes. He has no right to do that, he said. We're going to remove this ridiculous suspension, clear your name, and sort all of this out. I promise. Emily looked away, trying to steady her trembling hands. Mr. Hale, I'm sorry to dump all this on someone who shouldn't even be involved, but this is my problem. You don't have to step into it. I just want everything clarified, my job back, so I can tell them it was all a misunderstanding and not lose custody of my daughter. But I am going to get involved, Andrew answered without hesitation. At first, it was out of gratitude to her, but it wasn't just that anymore. It had gone beyond. He can't threaten you or his own daughter like that. Doesn't he think about you, or about her, and why? He cut himself off, as if he'd gone too far. Emily looked at him. Something passed between them, intense, silent, pulling two worlds together that should never have touched. But she needed him in that moment. And he knew that, maybe for the first time in his life, he needed her too. Emily stayed seated in front of Andrew's desk for a few seconds, breathing deeply, trying to organize too many emotions at once. Her return to work, the confrontation with Samantha, Andrew's unexpected appearance at her apartment, and now, as if fate were testing her limits, Mark's blackmail. Everything felt like a storm spinning out of control. Andrew, meanwhile, watched every micro-expression on her face. For the first time in years, he was being forced to stop. Not by choice, but because his body and heart had set a hard limit. His heart attack had been the most brutal reminder that no corporate agenda was worth his own life. And there, looking at Emily, vulnerable and strong at the same time, he felt, with frightening clarity, that his priorities were changing faster than he dared admit. Emily, he said, his voice low but steady, you're not safe like this, and neither is your daughter. I need to know about you two, so I can help. She swallowed. Her first instinct was to say no, because life had taught her that help almost always came with a price. But Andrew didn't seem to want anything in return. He seemed genuinely concerned. We'll be fine, sir, she said softly. I don't want to become a burden, and I don't want you thinking I'm asking for anything. I did what anyone would have done, so, like I said, I just want everything cleared up and my job back, please. You saved my life, Andrew replied. There is no burden greater than that. And still, you don't owe me anything. It's my turn to act, and all I want is to give something back. Emily looked away, fighting a wave of emotion. Sir, she began, but he interrupted. Andrew. Please call me Andrew. Before she could answer, someone knocked on the door. Mr. Hale. Sorry to interrupt, but the executive board already knows you're back unexpectedly, and they're demanding your presence immediately. They said it's urgent. Andrew closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and then his entire demeanor shifted. "Bring the board together," he said, rising slowly. "I'll go to them." Ben nodded and left quickly. Emily watched him, uneasy. "Wait here, I won't be long," he told her, before leaving. The boardroom was full when Andrew walked in. The entire executive committee waited, lined up like a silent tribunal. Samantha Doyle sat on the left, rigid, as if she had rehearsed her attack lines in advance. "Andrew, finally," said Howard Briggs, the CFO. "We're glad you're better, but we need to talk about your return and about certain concerns regarding the employee." "No," Andrew cut in, striding to the head of the table. "We're going to talk about something else first. The disgraceful decision to suspend the woman who saved my life." An uneasy murmur rippled through the room. Samantha straightened in her chair. "Andrew, it's not as simple as it seems. The medical team arrived very quickly, and her behavior was heroic," Andrew interrupted again. "While you all stood there watching and waiting for EMS to arrive. At what point did your ignorance allow you to label her behavior abusive or inappropriate? If she hadn't followed CPR protocol, I might not be here." No one dared respond. "She'll be reinstated immediately," Andrew continued, meeting each of their eyes. "And you will write a formal apology. Today. Signed by all of you." Samantha tried to regain control. "And if we disagree?" Andrew placed his hands on the table, steady and unyielding. "Then I'll replace anyone who disagrees, because the one thing I will not tolerate is injustice." The silence that followed made it clear the argument was over. "This meeting is adjourned," he finished, and he left. When Andrew opened his office door again, Emily was sitting on the small sofa, waiting, her hands intertwined in her lap. He closed the door behind him. "That's not happening again, and today, I'm taking you home myself. But first, I need to handle a few urgent things now that I'm back," Andrew said, voice firm. Emily started to protest, but he added, "Please, I insist." She let out a slow breath and simply accepted. That day, Emily went only to HR to sort out the paperwork for her return. When she came back to Andrew's office, she stayed in an armchair in the corner, from where she could watch him on the phone several times with investors, and Ben coming and going with stacks of documents. Some Andrew only reviewed, others he signed. At the end of the day, Andrew did exactly what he had promised. He insisted on taking her back to Brooklyn to assess the situation with Mark. Emily tried to refuse, but there was no use. He was determined not to let her face it alone. The car moved through the city, the tension palpable. But there was also something warm in the air, something quietly growing between them. "So?" Andrew asked suddenly. "Tell me a little about your life before all this." "With Mark?" she asked. "With everything," Andrew replied. Emily thought for a few seconds before answering. "I never really had an example of a stable family. So, when I was young, I think I ended up believing the wrong promises. Mark had that reckless charm, the kind of person who shines until you realize the light is coming from something burning. Then Lily came along, and I hoped that with her arrival he'd change. But it only got worse. Debts, addictions, disappearing for nights. The wrong friends. When things became unbearable, I found the courage to leave. Lily was still so little." Andrew listened in silence, absorbing everything. "You've been raising Lily alone since then," he said, more statement than question. "She deserves the emotional stability I never had," Emily replied. "And Mark was never able to give us that. Maybe I realized it a little late, but I think it's still in time because I managed to get my daughter out of that life. And now, even if it's something humble, she's growing up with something solid in love, respect, and trust." Andrew took a deep breath. It was time to say something he had been avoiding. "As you probably know from the news, I was married too," he said. At the time, with few details, the story of the young CEO of Hale and Warner Holdings getting divorced shortly after his wedding had spread through the media everywhere. He ran a hand through his hair, as if reliving everything, and decided to tell Emily the part that had never made the news. She came from a wealthy family, already had everything, except patience for someone like me. We'd been dating for a while, and the wedding happened more out of convenience than anything. I've always been a workaholic. I lived for the company. I don't think either of us really tried to build anything deeper. She had a fast-paced life and insisted on dragging me along. At first I tried, but I just couldn't. I worked until I lost everything that wasn't work. Emily was quiet for a moment. "And now?" she asked softly. Andrew looked at her intensely, sincere, vulnerable. "Now that I almost lost the only life I've got, I have no intention of wasting it again." The air seemed to change around them. Corporate tension gave way to something more human, deeper, maybe even forbidden. Emily looked away, feeling a wave of emotion she could barely name. When they arrived at her building, Andrew insisted on going up. Emily agreed, but when they reached her hallway, they realized they weren't alone. Leaning against the wall beside Emily's apartment door was Mark. Thin, in dirty clothes, eyes restless, the kind of restlessness that comes from sleepless nights, from nights spent with dangerous people or dangerous things. "About time, Emily," he said with a crooked smile. "Who's this? New boyfriend? Upgraded your life already, huh?" Emily stepped forward, blocking his approach. "Mark, you shouldn't be here. Lily's at school. What do you want?" "What do I want?" he laughed. "I want not to die, for starters. The guys I owe don't like waiting." Andrew watched everything in silence for a few seconds. Then he stepped forward. No aggression, just absolute authority. "You shouldn't be here," Andrew said. Mark arched a brow. "Ah, so you're the billionaire," he sneered. "How convenient, right, Emily?" Emily's body tensed. "Mark, don't start." "No, Emily," Mark replied, stepping closer in a threatening way. "Now I know you can really help me. And if you don't, I'll do exactly what I said on the phone." Emily froze. Andrew took another step. "If you threaten this woman or her daughter one more time," Andrew said, in a tone so calm it was almost frightening, "you'll be dealing with me from now on." Mark laughed, trying to hide the fact that it was nervous, shaky laughter. "Oh yeah? And what are you going to do? Buy my problems?" Andrew stared him down with absolute coldness. "If I have to, yes." Mark swallowed, surprised. He realized he wasn't facing just anyone. Emily took a deep breath, trembling slightly. Andrew noticed. Without touching her, he moved just close enough for her to feel his protective presence. "You're leaving now," Andrew told Mark. "And you don't come back unless you're invited." Mark spat on the floor, angry, but stepped back. He knew he wouldn't win that fight. Not this time. "This isn't over," he snarled, before disappearing down the stairs. Emily stayed still, breathing fast. Andrew watched her with a kind of concern that came from somewhere very deep. After Mark left, her breathing was still quick, her body still shaking. Andrew moved closer, not touching her, just staying where she needed him to be. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded, but her eyes said something else. Andrew took one more step, closing the distance. "You're not alone. From now on I'm here," he said, in a low tone that sent her heart racing. "I promise." Emily lifted her gaze and, in that instant, in that charged silence, something inside them simply aligned. Andrew touched her face very slowly, and the first kiss came. Warm, firm, full of urgency and tenderness. The kind of kiss that changes two lives and officially begins the romance growing between them. When the kiss ended, Andrew stayed in front of her, steady, looking into her eyes. He tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and waited a few seconds before speaking. And when he did, his voice was low, laden with concern and determination. "Emily, This situation with Mark can't go on. She ran her hands over her face, nervous. I know. But he's always been unpredictable. I have no control over what he does or who he gets involved with. But he can't threaten you or Lily, Andrew insisted. He can't show up here, dump his debts on you, and indirectly drag dangerous people to your door. That crosses every line. Emily closed her eyes for a moment. I don't want to drag you into this. Please, just go. It's not fair. This isn't about fairness anymore, he said. It's about responsibility. It's about protecting the people who matter. She lifted her gaze slowly, meeting his. And that was the first moment she truly understood something. Andrew wasn't saying this just because he was grateful. It wasn't only a sense of duty. There was something deeper: connection, care, and genuine interest. Emily looked away. I don't know how to handle this, she admitted. Everything that's happened, all of this crashing into my life at once. Andrew drew in a breath, as if his next words carried a weight he'd been holding for a long time. I don't know either, he said. But almost dying changes how we see things. Before, all I did was work. I lived and breathed the company. I lost my marriage because of that. And if I hadn't had that heart attack, I might already be dead. Still close, he ran his fingers lightly over her hands, as if he could still feel the compressions that saved his life. You didn't just bring me back, he said. You made me see I was living wrong. And I don't want to keep living that way. Emily stayed silent. It was rare to hear a powerful man admit such deep failures. Andrew Hale, the ruthless CEO, the financial genius who terrified his own board, confessing he'd lost himself in his own success, and that she, the invisible cleaning woman, had been his turning point. Andrew, she began, but her voice cracked. I still don't know where this is going. Neither do I, he said, stepping even closer. But I know I want to find out. With you. There was a pause, a moment crackling with electricity. The kind of moment that comes right before decisions that change lives. Emily blinked, feeling her heart race. Andrew raised his hand very slowly, slow enough for her to pull away if she wanted, and brushed his fingers softly against her cheek. Just his fingertips. Gentle, almost reverent. She didn't pull away. You deserve someone by your side, he murmured. Let me help you. Please? Emily felt her body shiver. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Recognition of something that had been growing since the moment she kept him alive on that cold conference room floor. She moved a fraction closer. Andrew noticed. His breathing deepened. I don't want to be a problem in your life, she whispered. They leaned in again. The space between them was almost non-existent. Emily could feel the warmth of his body, his subtle cologne, the faint tremor in his breathing. He kissed her again. Another warm, firm kiss, heavy with care. A kiss that said everything they were trying to hide, the fear, the attraction, the emotional urgency of two worlds colliding in a way that felt inevitable. She kissed him back with equal intensity, gripping the lapels of his suit, as if she needed something solid to hold on to in the middle of that explosion of feelings. When they pulled apart, they were both breathless. Andrew rested his forehead against hers. I promise we're going to deal with Mark, he said. Emily nodded, still breathing hard. I know. But not now, Andrew continued. You need to pick Lily up from school, and I don't want her scared by any of this. Emily glanced at the clock, startled. Oh my God, it's almost time. Andrew gave a faint smile. I'll go now, but I'll be back, if you'll let me. I just want to make sure you're both okay. She bit her lower lip, a small gesture, but loaded with everything still tangled inside her. Okay, you can come back, she said finally. Andrew touched her hand once more. A quick touch, but full of meaning. Then he left the apartment, leaving Emily with her heart racing and her mind in a whirlwind. But the storm wasn't over yet. On the corner of the building, sitting in a battered old car, Mark watched everything. Red eyes, jaw clenched. He saw Andrew leave, saw the luxury car he got into. He could see there was care there, and he understood Emily was no longer alone. And that enraged him. He grabbed his phone with trembling hands and dialed a number. "Yeah, it's Mark," he said quietly, still staring at her apartment window. "We need to talk." A pause. "Yes, I found a way to get the money, but it's going to be the hard way." He hung up and smiled, the kind of smile that announces danger. Inside the apartment, Emily took a deep breath, unaware that the man fate had dragged back into her life had just cast a shadow over it, and over the man she was beginning to fall for. The tension grew, the romance deepened, and the danger sharpened. The day before had left deep marks. After the kisses, Andrew had walked away only because Lily would be home. But his leaving didn't cool the moment. It only widened the space where tension, fear, and the beginnings of a profound romance intertwined. Emily barely slept. Every sound in the hallway echoed like a threat. Every minute felt haunted by Mark's shadow. And beneath those fears, something even more unsettling, the intensity of her connection with Andrew. In the morning, she tried to keep her routine with Lily, but her thoughts betrayed her. The kiss, the danger, Andrew's promise. Her heart was split, half terrified, half warmed by something she hadn't felt in years. When they descended the stairs of the modest Brooklyn building, Emily could hardly believe what she saw. A black luxury car was parked across the street, and leaning casually against the building's entrance wall, one hand in the pocket of his elegant coat and a cup of coffee in the other, stood Andrew Hale. He looked out of place, and yet completely right where he was. The morning's light mist turned his breath into vapor, and his posture, steady, alert, protective, said everything without words. Emily froze on the last step. "Andrew, you really came," she said, almost stammering. He opened a faint smile, not the polished corporate smile, a real, genuine one. "Good morning," he said, extending the cup toward her. "Cinnamon cappuccino, I remember." Emily was speechless for a moment. Such a small kindness, and yet so new to her life. "Thank you," she said at last, feeling the cup warm her hands and, in a way, her chest as well. Beside her, Lily wore the curious expression of a child trying to connect clues. Andrew bent down slowly to be at her height, with a natural ease that surprised Emily. "And you must be Lily," Andrew said, smiling gently and offering his hand. "Your mom told me about you. I'm Andrew." Lily studied him with wide eyes, shaking his hand but watching him like a character stepped out of a fairy tale. "You're handsome, and you're the man Mommy saved," she declared straightforward. Andrew laughed, this time with a light, amused smile. "That's me, and I'm very happy to be here today." Emily felt her heart tighten. He spoke to Lily in a way that wasn't forced, wasn't corporate script. It was human, real. "Are you taking us to school?" Lily asked, excited. Andrew looked at Emily, silently asking for permission. Emily hesitated. Everything in her was caution, but everything in him was protection. "Okay, he can," she told her. Lily's smile lit up the entire hallway. Andrew held out his hand and she took it. Emily followed right behind them, watching the two walk ahead hand in hand, already absorbed in their conversation. On the way to the school, the car moved through the streets, while Lily, sitting between them, talked nonstop. Andrew listened to every word, the questions, the school stories, the explanations about her drawings, complaints about cafeteria food. Then came the moment that completely disarmed him. "When I grow up," Lily began, gripping her pink pencil case, "I want to be a scientist who doesn't get tired." Andrew laughed, soft, sincere. "That's an excellent goal," he said, "but even scientists need rest." It's because Mommy never rests, Lily replied innocently. Emily turned to the window, embarrassed. Andrew looked at the girl with sudden seriousness. Then I guess I'll have to help your mom rest, he said, with an affectionate smile. Lily nodded, as if that were perfectly logical. Emily felt a pang in her chest strong enough to take her breath away. After dropping Lily off, Andrew and Emily returned to the car. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was intense. Emily, Andrew said at last, turning toward her. About yesterday. I can't ignore what happened with Mark and the way he showed up. This isn't something you should face alone. She took a deep breath, staring at her hands. Andrew, I don't know how to control this. I don't know how far he'll go. But I also don't want to drag you into this. I'm already involved, Andrew said, and I'm not stepping back now. Emily lifted her eyes. His tone wasn't dramatic. It was a promise. So what do we do? She asked. First, we get you out of your apartment for a few days, Andrew said. Somewhere safe, and we keep Lily's routine as normal as possible. That was outside her reality, but when she objected, he immediately said, And second, we find out exactly who Mark is dealing with, Andrew said. Please, no objections, just let me help you. Back at Hale and Warner, Andrew called in lawyers and Ben for a quick meeting. Emily stayed by his side, trying to look composed, though her heart raced. I want a full background check on Mark Collins, Andrew ordered. Debts, contacts, legal issues, everything. And security? Ben asked. Immediately reinforced, Andrew said. And find one of the corporate apartments for Emily. Something discreet, safe, comfortable. Emily's eyes widened. Andrew, no, I can't. You can, he insisted. And you will. This isn't a favor. It's protection. She took a breath, reluctant but grateful. That afternoon, the lawyers returned with information alarming enough to freeze her blood. Mark wasn't just in debt. He was tied to a small local criminal group known for extortion and violent debt collection, and he was desperate. The confirmation made Emily tremble. He wasn't like this, she whispered sadly. He was never dangerous. Desperation changes people, Andrew responded seriously. And right now, he's cornered. Security teams went to Emily's building. Unmarked vehicles watched the area. A security supervisor arrived with a hard expression. He's not alone. 2 men were spotted with him earlier. Emily felt the ground drop beneath her. Andrew rested a gentle hand on her shoulder. Breathe, he said. I'm here. That night, Emily, Andrew, and Lily were moved to the corporate apartment. It was spacious, quiet, with tall windows, modern furniture, and a partial view of the East River. Lily ran through the living room, delighted by the bright, open space. Mommy, you can see everything from here, she squealed, pressing her face to the glass. Emily approached, laying a hand on her daughter's shoulder. It's just for a few days, sweetheart, she said. Andrew watched them with an expression revealing something hard to hide. Connection, affection, and perhaps hope. When Lily became distracted in the bedroom, testing the new pillows, Emily and Andrew remained in the living room. The soft lamplight made the space intimate, too intimate. Andrew stepped closer. I know everything feels frightening right now, he said, but you're safe here, and so is Lily. Emily took a breath. I never thought my life would turn into this, she confessed. And I never imagined you here. Andrew gave a faint smile. I never imagined being here either, he said. But I am, and honestly, it's where I want to be now. Before Emily could respond, a silent alert vibrated on the head of security's phone in the hallway. Immediate notification. Suspicious movement on the street, he said. 2 figures too close to the entrance, and Mark's car was spotted 2 blocks away. They must have followed. Emily rushed to the window instinctively. From that height, she could see only a blurred figure on the sidewalk under the streetlights. The familiar silhouette. Mark. Watching the building. Not moving. with a look that blended desperation and threat. Emily's blood ran cold. Andrew stepped beside her. "This ends," Andrew said, looking outside with determination. "I promise you. But right now, you and Lily stay here, where he can't get to you. I'll take care of the rest." Emily nodded, despite her trembling breath. For the first time in a very long time, she wasn't facing everything alone, and that alone was the start of a new life. A life where Andrew Hale, the powerful man, the survivor, walked beside her. That first night in the apartment felt strange to Emily. The silence was larger than usual, but different, not heavy with fear, but with protection. Lily fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the chaotic day. Emily stayed awake for a while, staring at the East River through the wide windows, trying to understand how her life had turned upside down in just a few days. On the sofa, Andrew read reports on a tablet, but his eyes returned to Emily often, as if confirming she was truly safe. There was a new calm in him, a slowing down that had appeared since the heart attack. It wasn't just gratitude, it was transformation. "You don't have to stay up working," Emily said, settling into the armchair beside him. Andrew closed the tablet slowly. "I'm not here for work," he said. "I'm here because I want to make sure you're okay." Her expression softened. "I'm trying," she admitted. "But the truth is I'm scared and lost. I don't know what tomorrow will be like, or the day after." "Then we'll figure it out together," Andrew said. "And we'll start with your job." Emily tensed. "I still have one, right?" Andrew took a breath before answering. "Of course you do. You can go back to the team if you want, but it's not what I'd recommend." She raised her eyebrows. "What do you mean?" Andrew stood and walked toward the window, hands in his pockets, searching for the right words. "After what you did that day, the calm you kept, how you handled extreme pressure, a few people in the company approached me." Emily's eyes widened. 2 people from operations, to be exact. They said they noticed how you observe everything, and even doing a simple job, they saw how you organize, structure, manage time and space. One of them, the department's assistant manager, suggested you could become an administrative assistant for internal operations. Emily blinked, confused. "But I don't have training. I'm smart and I learn fast, but my resume is simple. I've never had a chance to work in an office." "That's not what matters," Andrew said. "They believe you have the profile. Calm, observant, disciplined, reliable. Exactly what they need." He paused. "You'd only need to accept training, and I've already made sure it will be paid. You won't lose salary during the transition." Emily needed a few seconds to absorb it. It was the first time, in her entire life, that someone saw beyond the tasks she performed. It was more than a promotion. It was recognition. "Is this real?" she whispered. "Completely," Andrew said. "And for the record, it was their idea, not mine." He smiled lightly, almost proud. "I just agreed and said I'd talk to you." Something opened inside Emily. Hope, relief, fear of believing too much. "What if I'm not good enough?" she murmured. Andrew took a few steps toward her and stopped right in front of her. His voice was firm, warm, steady. "You've already proven you are, more than anyone else in that building." The silence between them grew dense, until Lily appeared in the hallway, dragging her pink blanket. "Mommy, I can't sleep," she said, rubbing her eyes. Emily smiled, softening instantly. "Come here, sweetheart." Lily ran into her arms, and Emily sat on the couch, but Lily's eyes immediately fell on Andrew, still standing. "Andrew, are you going to sleep here too?" she asked, in disarming innocence. Emily turned bright red. Andrew laughed, kneeling beside them. "Not tonight, but I'll stay until you fall asleep if you want." Lily nodded eagerly. "Then tell a story," she said. Emily opened her mouth to say he didn't need to, but Andrew was already sitting on the rug, leaning against the couch beside them. He began an invented story about a tiny, brave scientist who discovered hidden stars, and Lily laughed, corrected him, added characters. Emily watched the scene with a full, warm heart. Andrew seemed so comfortable, so right in that moment. Hard to ignore. When Lily finally fell asleep in her mother's arms, Emily looked at him. "You're good with kids," she said softly. "I never had the chance to find that out," Andrew admitted. "During my marriage, I wasn't present enough to even think about kids. I think I missed important things." "But you seem different now," Emily said quietly. Andrew smiled, a sad smile. "Because you saw me at my weakest, and because Lily sees me as simple." Emily felt her chest warm. Andrew stood, gently lifted Lily, and carried her to the bedroom, placing her back in bed. After gathering his things from the living room, Emily walked him to the door and kissed him, long and deep. He whispered against her lips, "Tomorrow morning, I'm coming to get you both. Lock everything and rest." In the days that followed, their routine, their closeness, grew. In the mornings, Andrew picked them both up, they dropped Lily at school, and then headed to the company, where Emily spent a few hours training in the operations department. The assistant manager, Ryan McConnell, a methodical, pragmatic man, was impressed by how fast she learned. "You observe before you act," he told her after a few days. "Most people don't. It prevents mistakes and saves a lot of time. You've got the right profile." Emily smiled, shy but proud. For several days, Emily and Andrew attended formal meetings about security and about Mark's case. Some employees whispered, of course, but Andrew's posture at her side made it clear that nothing would be tolerated, and Ryan made a point of introducing Emily to every colleague naturally, reinforcing that she was part of the team. Slowly, Emily noticed something unexpected appearing there: respect. And that small change was more transformative than any promotion. On a Friday afternoon, while they were reviewing routine reports in Andrew's office, he walked over to her spontaneously. "Emily," he began, "I need to ask you something a little different." She lifted her head, confused. Andrew drew in a breath. "I have an important corporate event tomorrow, a charity presentation, our annual gala. The main investors will be there, and my presence is mandatory." He paused briefly, eyes searching hers. "I'd like you to come with me." Emily froze. "Me? With you?" "Yes, by my side." She swallowed hard. "Andrew, that's a lot. I don't belong in that world. I don't know how to behave at that kind of event, and I don't even have anything to wear." Andrew took a step toward her. "You don't need to behave a certain way. Just be there, beside me. I'll handle the rest." He gave a soft smile. "I'll arrange someone trustworthy to look after Lily, and as for clothes, that's already taken care of. Nothing extravagant, just worthy of you." Emily's heart began to race. It wasn't just an invitation. It was a symbol, a public, powerful gesture that he saw her as someone who, despite her humble background, could walk beside him even in a world of galas, elegance, and influence. "Then I accept," she said quietly. Andrew smiled slowly, as if her answer confirmed something he already knew. "Great. Then tomorrow, I'll pick you up." Emily felt her whole body tremble with anticipation. Fear, emotion, desire, all tangled together. And for the first time since everything began, she believed that maybe her life really was changing for the better. In the most unexpected way. Almost like one of those emotional stories she never imagined she would live. Saturday had a different feel in the apartment, and later, right after lunch, Emily couldn't shake the growing anxiety. It was as if every small motion in her routine carried the weight of what was coming. The Hale Warner Holdings annual gala, an event she only ever heard about in whispered hallway conversations back when she was invisible. But now, she would be going as the CEO's guest. Emily took a deep breath as she put away the lunch dishes, while Lily colored in a notebook at the kitchen counter. "Mom, you're weird today," the girl said, looking up. "It's just going to be a long day, sweetheart," Emily replied with a hesitant smile. "Is it because of Andrew?" Lily asked, innocent as always. "You get like this when you think about him." Emily flushed. "I'm not thinking about him," she muttered, lying and looking away. Before Lily could ask more, the intercom rang. It was the company employee assigned to help Emily that afternoon. When she opened the door, she found an elegant woman with a polite smile. "Emily Walker? I'm Clara. Mr. Hale asked me to help you get ready for the event." Emily blinked, surprised. "Help? How exactly?" Clara stepped inside with a long, carefully wrapped box and a smaller bag. "With everything," she answered with discreet professionalism. "Dress, makeup, hair, a few basic protocol tips." She paused, taking in the apartment kindly. "He wants you to feel comfortable, and he wants you to be ready to be seen." Those words knocked the air from Emily's lungs. She was about to enter a world that had always been out of reach. Besides Clara, there was also a security guard and another woman, a professional caregiver assigned to stay with Lily. The woman came in, introduced herself, and soon left with the girl for a supervised outing, accompanied by a security officer, a way to keep Lily distracted and safe while her mother got ready. Emily's heart tightened watching her daughter leave, but she knew Lily would be safe and cared for. Clara opened the dress box, and Emily froze. It was a long black silk gown with an elegant, lightly structured cut, simple but striking, perfectly tailored to flatter her figure without excess. The kind of dress that seemed designed specifically for her, and in fact, it had been. Emily touched the fabric, moved. "I've never worn anything like this," she confessed, voice wavering. "You'll feel like yourself inside it," Clara replied. "That's what matters." The transformation process took hours. Subtle makeup that enhanced Emily's eyes, hair pulled into an elegant updo with soft strands framing her face, a light perfume, tiny adjustments to the dress for a perfect fit, heels that looked impossible but which, Clara promised, were comfortable enough. Emily, who had kept her beauty buried under a lifetime of worry and survival, was shy and nearly refused to look in the mirror. "Look," Clara said, guiding her toward the reflection. When Emily finally raised her eyes, she barely recognized herself. It was her, but a more confident, more grown, more belonging version. A woman who could stand beside Andrew without looking out of place. A woman capable of living a dramatic love story, if fate allowed. Emily's eyes welled up. Clara smiled. "My job was easy. You're already beautiful," she said. "He won't be able to take his eyes off you." Andrew arrived at 6 p.m. sharp. Emily heard the soft knock at the door and felt her heart race. When she opened it, she found the CEO in a flawless tuxedo, hair-styled, expression serious, and eyes that locked on her as if the world had stopped. For several seconds, Andrew simply didn't speak. He took her in as if seeing something extraordinary. "Emily," he murmured, almost breathless. "You look perfect." Emily felt her face heat instantly. "I really hope I'm up to your level tonight," she said, barely above a whisper. Andrew stepped closer, near enough that she could feel the warmth of him, his breath between them. "You'll be the most elegant person at that event," he said. Emily gave a timid smile, but there was a new light in her eyes. Andrew offered his arm. "Ready?" "I think so." And together, they left the apartment and stepped into the gala night. Arriving at the ballroom of the 5-star hotel was like stepping into another universe. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling. Red carpets guided executives, investors, diplomats, and socialites. Tables adorned with elaborate floral arrangements filled the room. A live jazz band played in the right-hand corner. Emily felt the air leave her for a second. Andrew noticed. "Breathe," he whispered. "I'm here." Emily nodded, trying to take it all in without letting herself be overwhelmed. But the truth was obvious. Everyone was looking at them. Not just at Andrew, at her. Many with curiosity, some with surprise, others with judgment. But everyone understood one thing. Andrew Hale hadn't come alone. Samantha Doyle stood near the bar, in a dramatic red dress, her expression frozen in disbelief when she saw Emily. Howard Briggs nearly spilled his drink as he greeted Andrew. "Andrew, glad you made it. And you brought—" Howard glanced toward Emily, searching for words. "Your guest." "Yes," Andrew replied evenly. "This is Emily Walker." At the sound of her last name, some executives exchanged glances. They recognized it. The story, the internal scandal about the suspension, the heroic act that had saved the CEO. Andrew noticed and doubled down. "The woman who saved my life," he said, loud enough for the nearby crowd to hear. Emily nearly stumbled, unsure where to put her eyes, but Andrew squeezed her hand gently, the touch firm, reassuring, discreet. He spoke with the executives gathered there, ignoring their thinly veiled shock, greeted them, and then moved on, Emily at his side. As the evening went on, Emily began to relax. Andrew introduced her to important people without a second of hesitation. She smiled, made small talk naturally, and answered questions with disarming honesty and quiet poise. And surprisingly, some people liked her immediately, especially an older investor who adored her spontaneous honesty when she commented on the buffet. "You're different," he said, laughing. Andrew watched it all with quiet pride. In the middle of the night, as softer music drifted through the ballroom and some people moved toward the dance floor, Andrew turned to Emily. "Can I steal you away from all this for a minute?" "Yes," she said. He led her to an outdoor terrace lit by delicate string lights. A gentle breeze brushed her face. The elegant hum of the event faded into the background. There, alone, Andrew took a moment to simply look at her. "I wanted to bring you here," he said, "because I wanted you to see. There is no place you can't be." Emily felt her heart twist. "But I don't belong to this world," she confessed. Andrew took a step closer. "You belong anywhere you decide to stand," he replied. Another pause. "And I want to be wherever you are." Emily's breath hitched. He lifted his hand and touched her face like something precious. He leaned in slowly and kissed her. There, under the Manhattan night, amid elegant lights and silent promises. The kiss was slow, deep, different from the others. A kiss that said, "I choose you." A kiss that sealed something that had been growing since that chaotic night on the 42nd floor. When they pulled apart, Emily was breathless. So was Andrew. "Andrew," she whispered, "I'm scared." He smiled, resting his forehead against hers. "So am I. But we're in this together." Emily smiled, eyes shining, and the world felt smaller, safer, more possible. When they walked back into the ballroom, hand in hand and fingers intertwined, people looked again, this time with certainty. It wasn't rumor. It wasn't speculation. It wasn't casual. It was real. Something with someone from a completely different world who now walked beside him as his equal. And Emily felt, for the first time, that maybe she was beginning to live something she'd only ever seen in dramatic love stories or in novels meant for women who dream of something more. But this was real life, and it was hers. The morning after the gala, Emily woke with a strange, contradictory feeling. Inside, a new glow. The memory of Andrew's gaze, the kiss on the terrace, the way he had presented her to the world without hesitation. Outside, the persistent shadow of the problem circling her life. Mark. She looked around the apartment. Lily was still asleep, clutching her pink blanket. Soft light filtered in through the curtains. It looked like an ordinary morning, but Emily knew it wasn't. It never would be again. A little while later, Andrew arrived. No tuxedo this time, but the sight of him still stole her breath. White shirt with the sleeves rolled up, no tie, freshly shaved, that subtle cologne, hair still slightly damp, as if he'd just stepped out of the shower. His most human, least CEO version. There was something different in his eyes. Pure focus. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, crossing to her and kissing her like it had been forever. Emily drew in a breath, and looking into his eyes, said, "More than I expected, less than I wanted." He gave her a crooked smile, understanding without needing more words. "Today we deal with the other part," he said, "the past that keeps knocking on your door." Emily's expression grew serious. "You have news about Mark?" Andrew nodded. "I do, and it's not simple." They went into the living room. Lily was still asleep. The temporary nanny wouldn't arrive until later. Andrew set a folder on the coffee table and opened it. "Our investigators confirmed what we suspected," he began. "Mark owes money to dangerous people. He's not some big criminal. He's a weak man, cornered, trying to stay afloat by making bad decisions." Emily's chest tightened. That sounds like him. "Last night they tailed him," Andrew went on. "He was a few blocks from here again. Maybe trying to work up the nerve to show up, maybe looking for a gap in security." Emily closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "He's not going to stop. Not on his own." "No," Andrew agreed. "So we'll stop this for him." She looked at him. "How?" Andrew sat in front of her, meeting her gaze. "With law and with boundaries," he said. "No violence, no revenge, just consequences." He explained, "The legal team prepared a formal complaint with everything we can prove. Blackmail, threats, attempted coercion. You'll have to confirm it in person." He paused. "And based on that, we'll request a restraining order, and, if necessary, criminal charges." Emily bit her lower lip. "I never wanted to send my daughter's father to jail," she said quietly. "I understand," Andrew replied, sincere. "But you also can't let her father keep threatening you and putting you both in danger. Sometimes, protecting someone we love means making hard decisions." The words echoed inside her. He was right. She knew it, but admitting it hurt. "And if Lily asks?" Emily whispered. Andrew leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You'll tell her the truth in a way she can handle. That her father made bad choices, but that he's getting help now from the justice system to learn from them, and that you'll always be by her side." Emily took a breath. "And what if he reacts badly?" "Security will handle any reaction," Andrew said. "I don't want you talking to him alone again. I don't want you putting yourself in the position of trying to save him while he's threatening you." The sentence landed on him too, like a mirror. He realized in that moment that this was an emotional survival story, not just for Emily, but for him as well. A man learning to set limits on his own urge to fix the world with control and money. After a few seconds of quiet thought, Emily nodded. "Okay, I'll sign," she said. "Not out of anger, but for protection, especially for Lily." Andrew only inclined his head, respectful, quietly proud. A few hours later, Emily sat in a small, plain room inside a government building, at a metal desk. The company's lawyer sat beside her, the official in charge of registering the complaint across from them, and Andrew in the back, silent. She described every threat, every call, every sudden appearance, every sentence where Mark used Lily as leverage. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't invent anything. She just told the truth, with the courage of someone finally choosing to break a cycle. When she finished signing, the officer gathered the documents. "From here," he explained, "we'll file for the protection order and open the case. He'll be officially notified. There will be a hearing. You won't need direct contact, and if he violates the order, he can be arrested immediately." Emily listened in silence. It was a lot, but paradoxically, it also felt necessary. As they left the building, Andrew placed a hand lightly on her back in support. "I'm with you," he said simply. She smiled, tired but steady. "I know. Thank you." The first big step had been taken. Now they just had to see how Mark would react. The answer came sooner than they expected. 2 days later, in the evening, the head of security knocked on the apartment door. "Mr. Hale, Emily, you need to hear this." Andrew was on his feet instantly. Emily felt her heart pounding. "What happened?" she asked. "Mark was located this afternoon," the supervisor said. "He tried to round up some friends to pressure you two, but found out most of them are afraid to go up against a company the size of Hale and Warner." He paused. "And at the same time he was served the subpoena, he snapped, made a scene at a neighborhood bar. The police were called. He's in custody." Emily covered her mouth, stunned. "He's in jail. Detained for now," the man corrected. "But with the formal complaint, his history of threats, and the attempted extortion, he'll likely remain in custody until the hearing. The lawyer's already been notified, and the judge has granted your protection order." Emily felt her knees weaken. Andrew was at her side in an instant, pulling her into his arms. "Sit," he said, guiding her to the couch. She sank down, still trying to process it all. It wasn't joy. It wasn't exactly pure relief. It was a mixture of sadness and the heavy sense of justice finally demanding an inevitable price. "I never wanted it to end like this," Emily murmured. "But maybe it was the only way." "You didn't do this to destroy him," Andrew reminded her. "You did it to protect yourself and Lily. And now, maybe, he finally has a chance to face his own mistakes." She took a deep breath, eyes misty. "Do you think he can change?" Andrew didn't answer right away. "I think that's no longer your responsibility," he said gently. "Your responsibility is to yourself, to your daughter, to the life you're starting to build." Emily looked at him, and something inside her finally gave way. The guilt, the unspoken obligation, the instinct to save someone who never wanted to be saved. All of it began to dissolve. She cried. Not a loud, uncontrolled sob, but a contained, painful cry. The kind of tears that come when someone finally accepts they can't carry the weight of the world alone. Andrew just stayed there, by her side. His hand moved slowly over her back, not pushing, not forcing words, just offering his presence. After a few minutes, Emily took a deep breath and wiped her eyes. "And now?" she asked, her voice still hoarse. Andrew gave her a tender smile. "Now, you live." He moved closer, sitting right next to her. He laid his hand over hers, their fingers interlacing. "You keep working in operations, growing professionally. You keep watching Lily grow up safe. You keep letting me be here, if you want me." She looked at him, heart speeding up. "Are you still sure about that?" she asked. "About me? About us? About all this baggage?" Andrew leaned in, bringing his face closer to hers, his voice a firm whisper. "I've never been so sure of anything in my life." And he kissed her. This time the kiss didn't carry fear, it carried resolve, it carried future. It had the calm of people who survived storms and were finally starting to see the outline of a horizon. When they pulled away, both were breathless, but at peace. "You know," Emily murmured with a small, crooked smile, "this whole story feels like something out of a full dramatic romance, like the ones people listen to at night." Andrew chuckled softly. "Maybe it is," he said, "but this one is ours." And in that moment, she felt it. Mark was part of the past, a painful past, one that would still leave scars, but one that would no longer dictate her steps. The present was here, right beside her. The future was beginning to take shape. And for the first time, Emily wasn't afraid of what was coming. The following days passed like a quiet transition between chaos and a new beginning. Mark remained in custody awaiting trial, held under court orders that finally put real distance between him and the family he'd walked away from, but kept trying to drag down with him. Emily still carried the inevitable mix of relief and sadness, but she could now breathe without being afraid to look out the window. The company didn't go back to normal overnight. Nothing does after a trauma, an unfair suspension, a CEO nearly dying, and a moral scandal. But slowly, a new normal emerged. A normal where Emily was no longer invisible, and where her new routine in operations was intense. She arrived early, still shy about her new desk, a small but extremely organized space, and the computer where Ryan McConnell patiently taught her everything: vendor records, order tracking, simple reports, handling small internal requests, tasks that required attention and logic, but that Emily absorbed as if she had finally been placed where she was meant to be. "You learn fast," Ryan remarked as they reviewed a report. "I just never had the opportunity to learn any of this before." "Well, you have it now," he replied honestly, "and you're doing very well." Emily smiled, feeling a surprising wave of pride. Meanwhile, the team gradually began accepting her presence. Some watched with curiosity. After all, it was impossible to ignore that she was the woman who had saved Andrew Hale, others with quiet admiration. And there were, of course, the resistant ones. There always are. But Andrew, with the kind of authority no one dared challenge, made one thing very clear. Emily belonged there. And that ended any internal debate. In the afternoons, Andrew was the one who always showed up. Sometimes with a corporate excuse, a nearby meeting, a document for Ryan, an unexpected check-in. Sometimes with no excuse at all. The first time that happened, he leaned casually against the doorway, crossed his arms, and simply asked, "How's your day going?" Emily glanced at him, trying not to smile too much, then at Ryan, who was at his desk in the far corner, typing and pretending to be deeply focused. "Productive," she answered, "but exhausting." "Want a break?" Andrew asked, a subtle glint of intimacy in his eyes. "I can't," Emily replied softly, already laughing. "I'm still in training." "Right, then I'll just stay here, watching." "Andrew!" "What?" "I'm being discreet." He wasn't. Ryan coughed to hide a laugh, but no one dared comment. The respect, and healthy fear, for the CEO was still universal. Days turned into weeks. Forced by life to slow down, Andrew spent less time in endless meetings. He started spending more time at the apartment, especially with Lily, who was always waiting for him with a new drawing to show. He had become routine, presence. He was already part of that home. One Saturday morning, Lily watched cartoons in the living room, while Emily flipped pancakes in the kitchen, and Andrew typed something on his tablet at the table, hair still tousled, in a simple t-shirt and sweatpants. "Never thought I'd see Andrew Hale like this," Emily teased, setting a plate down in front of him. "Like what?" "Relaxed and messy, with pancakes, in a t-shirt." He looked up and said, "I almost died, Emily." She swallowed. "I know. And when I woke up, I realized I'd spent years just surviving. Now I want to actually get it right." "Get what right?" Andrew glanced toward Lily on the couch. "Living," he said. "I want to live right, not just survive." Emily went quiet. It was deep, especially for a simple morning. But it made sense. A kind of sense she could feel in her bones, because her own life was also shifting towards something unexpected. The hearing for Mark took place 3 weeks later. Emily didn't have to face him. The law finally served as a real barrier. By the end of the preliminary process, Mark accepted a court agreement that included mandatory treatment for his addictions, psychosocial follow-up, a formal restriction on contact, a ban on getting close to Emily and Lily for a long period, and supervised conditions for any possible parental visitation in the future. It wasn't revenge, it was consequence. And for the first time, Emily left a courthouse feeling like life was starting to work instead of fall apart. Andrew walked beside her through the parking lot. "It's over," he said calmly. She took a deep breath. "It's over." He took her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. Emily didn't pull away. One afternoon, after work, Andrew walked into the operations floor with a slightly different expression. Energized, but tense. "Emily, can I talk to you for a minute?" "Of course," she said, standing up. He led her to his office, closed the door, and took a deep breath. "I want you to move in with me." Emily froze. "Andrew." "It's not about control," he said quickly. "It's because I want you with me. I want to wake up with you on the other side of the bed every day, not just on weekends. I want to make breakfast for Lily before school. I want to come home knowing you'll both be there, safe, living your lives with me." He stepped closer. "And because I'm really in love with you." Emily felt her knees weaken. It was simple, direct, strong. No theatrics. "I don't want to pressure you," he went on, "but I want the chance to build something real." Emily took a deep breath. She thought of the woman who had walked into that building alone, picking up trash. She thought of the Emily who fought to pay rent, the Emily who had held his life in her hands on that cold conference room floor. The Emily now had a job where she was recognized, stability, protection, and a man who saw her as his equal. And she knew in that moment that fear couldn't keep running her life forever. "I want that too," she said softly. "I want to try. I want to live." Andrew smiled, a full, genuine smile, richer than any she'd ever seen on him. He pulled her by the waist and kissed her, hot, intense, sure. A beginning, not an ending. A kiss that said, "We're here now." When they broke apart, Emily rested her forehead against his chest. "But Lily comes too," she said firmly. "Always," Andrew replied. "She's part of you. So, she's part of me too." Emily smiled, eyes wet. The move happened a month later. It wasn't an instant fairy tale. Lily took time to adjust to the new room, the new space. Emily took time to believe she deserved to be there. Andrew took time to understand how to balance work, life, and the love that grew every day for a family he'd never imagined having. But the romance grew. Slowly, honestly. The way a true slow-burn romance grows. Not starting with perfection, but reaching something very close to it through sincerity. Shared nights, simple dinners, long conversations, hugs after hard days, kisses that grew warmer once the house was quiet. Routine, emotional intimacy, the discovery of a possible future. And one day, in the middle of that new life, Lily announced out of nowhere, "Mom, Andrew is like a new member of our team." Emily laughed. Andrew smiled, and neither of them disagreed. At the launch of a new company project, a small, internal but important event, Andrew called Emily up on stage with him just before finishing his speech. She flushed, confused. He took her hand, lifted it slightly, and said in a clear, steady voice, "This is Emily Walker, my employee, my hero, my partner, and proudly, my family." Emily froze. The room broke into applause. Warm, genuine. Ryan shouted, "That's right!" clapping and whistling like a co-worker and friend who fully supported them. Lily, sitting in the audience with the nanny, threw her arms up like she'd just seen fireworks. Andrew leaned toward Emily and whispered, "Now the world knows." She smiled, full, emotional, certain. "And so do I." And right there, in front of everyone, Andrew kissed her. Not as some impulsive gesture, but like a man confirming an entire lifetime of possibilities. Life didn't become perfect, but it became theirs. Emily never forgot where she came from. Andrew never forgot what he almost lost. And together, they built something that wasn't about fortune or power or glamour, even though all of that existed in the background. It was about choice, about love, about emotional survival turning into belonging. It was a forbidden romance that stopped being forbidden. An emotional story that became possible. A dramatic narrative that found a worthy ending. an ending, but also a beginning. Because from that moment on, Emily, Lily, and Andrew were no longer three separate lives brought together by chance. They were a family, and they were ready for everything the future, finally, might offer. If this story touched you, if you followed every moment by their side and let yourself be carried by this journey of love and survival, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be with us for all the next stories still to come. Thank you for listening.